This wall kept falling until they buried a living woman beneath it. In old Japan, when castle walls cracked and bridge pillars collapsed, builders did not always blame engineering. They blamed the spirits, and they paid them in human lives. The practice had a name: hitobashira, the human pillar. A person sealed alive inside the foundation of a great structure, so the structure itself would stand. Some victims were chosen by dream, some by chance. One was a half-blind mother of two who only asked that her son be raised as a samurai. That promise was broken, and 400 years later, the villagers of Fukui still say her sorrow floods the castle moat every June. The chronicles record names, the diaries record dates, and by the end of this video, you will know the names hidden under 3 of Japan's most famous castles and bridges. Names that tourists walk past every single day without ever hearing them whispered. Hitobashira is written with 2 characters, person and pillar, a human being made into part of the building. In a country threatened by floods, earthquakes, and warfare, construction was sacred and dangerous work. The Japanese believed that kami, spirits, lived in rivers, in mountains, in the very ground itself. Disturb them and your wall would crack. Calm them with an offering and your wall would stand. The oldest written hint of this idea appears in the Nihon Shoki, Japan's 8th-century chronicle. In its pages, Emperor Nintoku faces 2 rivers, the Kitakawa and the Mamuta, that refuse to be tamed. They overflow, they drown his fields. And then, in a dream, the emperor receives a divine revelation. 2 names, Kawakubi of Musashi and Koromonoko of Kawachi. Sacrifice them and the rivers will be calmed. Kawakubi was thrown into the torrent of the Kitakawa. A prayer was offered, the waters quieted. Koromonoko, the second man, devised a test with floating gourds and slipped free. He lived. The river accepted only one of them. Some scholars suggest this story is more myth than history, but it tells us something true about how old Japan understood disaster. The same logic, centuries later, would follow Japanese builders out of the chronicles and into the foundations of real bridges and real castles. Hitobashira legends almost always cluster around water: bridges, embankments, riverworks, dams. The reason is brutally simple. These were the projects most likely to fail. A castle wall stands on dry stone. A bridge stands on a riverbed that shifts with every flood. In the 15th century, a court diary called the Yasutomi-ki preserved one such story: the tradition of Nagara no hitobashira. Along the Nagara River, builders were preparing to raise a great bridge. They were searching for a victim. A woman happened to pass by, carrying her young son on her back. She was seized, and, the chronicle says, she was buried alive at the very spot the bridge would rise. We do not know her name, we do not know the boys. The diary only records that the sacrifice was made, and that the bridge stood. Stories like this were not told to celebrate cruelty. They were told to inspire what villagers called a spirit of self-sacrifice, the idea that one life, surrendered, could protect 1,000. But for the woman of the Nagara River, the question was simpler. Why her? Why that day? And the answer hidden beneath the next great stone foundation at a castle in Fukui would echo across 4 centuries. In 1576, in what is now Fukui Prefecture, a samurai named Shibata Katsutoyo began building Maruoka Castle. The plan was ambitious: a great keep raised on a steep base of rough, uncut stone. But the base would not hold. The masons would pile the stones would shift, the wall would collapse, again and again. According to the legend of Oshizu Hitobashira, the workers ran out of ideas. They began to whisper that the spirits of the land would never accept this castle, not without a price. A poor woman named Oshizu was found nearby. She was half blind. She was raising 2 children alone. She had nothing. And she was offered a bargain. She would become the human pillar, sealed alive beneath the stones of the keep, and in exchange, one of her sons would be raised as a samurai. She agreed. The wall was built over her body. The keep rose, and it held. But before the promise could be kept, Shibata Katsutoyo was transferred to another province. He left, and the boy was never made a samurai. Oshizu's spirit, the villagers said, did not forgive. Every June, when the rains come heavy and the moat overflows, locals still say it is her tears. A small tomb was raised on the castle grounds to soothe her. And yet, historians who studied Maruoka's collapsing walls have offered a quieter explanation, one that has nothing to do with ghosts, and everything to do with what we now know about how Maruoka was actually engineered. To understand the limits of hitobashira as history, we have to leave Maruoka and travel west to the city of Matsue, where in 1608, builders began work on the Ohashi Bridge. The Ohashi crossed a wide, slow river, and the riverbed was treacherous. According to the legend, the pillars could not find a solid bottom. Every pillar they sank, the mud swallowed. The bridge had to stand, but the river would not let it. So the builders made a vow. The first man to cross the unfinished bridge wearing a hakama without a machi, that is, formal trousers missing a single piece of inner cloth, would be taken as the human pillar. They watched, they waited, and then a man named Gensuke crossed. His hakama had no machi. The builders seized him. He was buried alive in the riverbed, beneath what became the middle pillar of the bridge. From that day, the pillar bore his name, Gensuke Bashira, the Pillar of Gensuke. The park beside the river still carries his name today. But here is where the story bends. Some historians believe Gensuke was never a man at all. They argue that Gensuke was the name of an era in the local Matsue dialect, a word for a time period, mistaken across centuries for a person. A bridge pillar named for a year, not a soul. Yet in 1891, when the old bridge was finally replaced, the entire countryside still believed. Matsue Castle stands above the same city, and it carries its own legend, quieter and crueler. According to tradition, when the great stone walls of Matsue Castle were raised, a young woman was buried beneath them. We do not know her name. The chronicles forgot it. We are told only that she was beautiful and that she loved to dance. After the castle was completed, the Lord of Matsue passed a strange law. Girls were forbidden to dance in the streets of the city. The reason given in the legend was simple. When girls danced, the hill of Oshiroyama would shudder, and the castle would shake from its keep to its foundations. The buried maiden, they said, was answering them. What do we make of these stories? A historian must be honest. The Maruoka source itself suggests the castle's collapsing walls had an architectural cause. Too steep a slope, too rough a stone. Gensuke may have been a year, not a man. The dancing maiden has no name and no date. And yet, when a new Matsue Bridge was built in 1891, rural villagers refused to come into town. They had heard the rumour, a new pillar, a new sacrifice, 3 centuries after Gensuke. The fear, at least, was unmistakably real. Walk across the Gensuke Bridge today, and the river is calm. Climb the stone base of Maruoka Castle, and you will see the rough, uncut stones still piled at their steep, dangerous angle. Stand inside Matsue Castle, where dancing was once forbidden by law, and you will hear nothing but the wind. The names of the human pillars are not carved into the walls. O Shizu, Gensuke, the Maiden of Matsue, Koakubi, thrown into the Kitakawa, the woman of the Nagara River, whose name no one wrote down. Most visitors will never hear them. Whether or not every one of these sacrifices truly happened, the legends survived for a reason. In a country built on floodplains and earthquake faults, communities had to explain why their bridges fell and why their walls cracked. Sometimes they blamed the rivers, sometimes they blamed the gods, and sometimes they blamed themselves for what they had, or had not, buried beneath the stones. The next time you cross a Japanese bridge, listen carefully. Old Japan remembers what it cost to keep that bridge standing.